Warning, this episode of Where Did the Road Go may give you weird dreams. This month's Where Did the Road Go is sponsored by the following awesome individuals. Greg Ross, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, Yvonne Williams, and Michael Friske. Thank you so much for helping make this show possible.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Seriah.
Welcome to this edition of Where Did the Road Go, which is Dreams Part 2, with Natalie.
Hi.
Brennan.
Hello.
And Matt.
Hello, my darlings.
I feel like we all did Part 1 together, am I correct?
You are correct.
All right.
I thought we did dream that.
I was here some of
We
the time.
might have dreamed that. Natalie has fallen asleep and kept talking before.
Just once. But it did,
I didn't
distressingly
notice.
happened.
Like continuing
And
the conversation.
It was during a Where Did the Road Go, and I just kept talking, apparently, and then I woke up and realized I'd been talking, and instantly panicked, because I had no memory of what I'd been saying.
Oh, no.
I am assured that it made sense.
Yeah, no one else noticed. I don't remember who else was on that call, but you made perfect sense.
Good. All I want to do is pass. Pass for normal.
You did not fall asleep and start snoring like certain other co-hosts.
I just snore for punctuation.
So,
I
anyway.
can't point fingers. I fell asleep on the last Ghostery Guys recording. It had been a really long run of days, including a flight, and I had to take allergy medication, and just boom,
that's
gone.
brutal.
Eyes closed, fully REM sleep, while Paul was talking to me.
That will do it. Did you wake up when he was done talking to you?
Oh, no, I was actually narrating a story, and I said, I just fell asleep, didn't I? He said, yes, you did. Your eyes were fully closed.
You fell asleep while
Yeah.
talking.
While I was talking. Yep.
It's pretty impressive,
And you
actually.
didn't keep talking, though, right?
No,
Okay.
no, it's just like an old clock winding down.
Well, we could start with these two listener dream experiences. One's short, one's a little longer. This one, I didn't record who sent this one to me. I think this came through the website itself. Said, "Hi, Seriah. I wanted to share my story, and I'm wondering if others who listen to your show have had similar experiences. I rarely get sleep paralysis, but might have had them on this occasion, which I'm about to describe. I tend to sleep on my stomach, and one time in the last year I was seemingly asleep when I felt a presence in the room. This has happened many times over my life, and I usually just ignore that feeling, knowing it would go away soon enough. Sometimes I would just sense the presence of the other. Every now and then I would experience the old hag syndrome of feeling a presence and weight upon my back pushing into the mattress. But that was many years ago, and I didn't think too much of it, thinking that it was likely just wasn't real." I totally messed up that sentence, but let me try again. "And didn't make too much of it, thinking that it likely wasn't real. But this time, I felt the presence pulling my astral legs in an attempt to pull me out of my body. I was lucid enough to resist strongly. It gave up on the attempt shortly, and I no longer feel the presence." So I haven't had that experience.
That's funny because the leg pulling thing I've heard, at least from friends.
Really?
I've never had it personally that No, actually, that's not true. I had it once it was a few years ago, but just once. But I know friends who have it fairly frequently.
I mean, I think I've talked about it. I was in a deep sleep paralysis type state where I felt like I was almost underwater and I was surfacing, and I woke up and felt like I was literally breaking the top of the water, and was like, "Oh, I'm awake," and something grabbed me and pulled me back down. But that was
Interesting.
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say that wasn't me resisting in that case. That was just me being pulled back into it.
I haven't had anything like that relative to sleep paralysis, but the pulling on the legs did seem familiar and this was something that I would notice mainly when I was younger. When I would be falling asleep, but also be aware enough to feel myself falling asleep, it always felt like being sort of slipping out or being pulled out through the bottom of my feet.
Oh,
I mean, it really tracks as like a method, I guess, for something trying to pull you out of your body.
yeah, I guess.
It makes me think like the guided meditations and stuff where it talks about like starting with the feet and pulling your energy out. Sometimes it's the top of the head, sometimes it's the feet.
Yeah, true. So the other one came from Gantic. I think he sent this to me on Patreon, or he put it in a Patreon post. I'm not sure. He says, a somewhat strange event happened to me a few days ago that I thought I would share regarding telepathy. If anyone has knowledge of or experience, I would be much interested and appreciative. On Wednesday morning, I woke up around 3 a.m., not unusual at all for me, and I was laying on my back in bed with my wife and cat. My wife was snuggled up to my left arm, and my cat curled around my right arm. As I'm trying to doze off, I begin hearing my wife talking in her sleep. I thought it was pretty cute, so I lay there and listened to her for a few moments, hoping she would say something funny so I could jest with her in the morning. Instead, she was talking about highly specific tasks she was going to do at her university club. I was surprised how clear she was speaking, and she said things like, I need to talk to Susan, and after that I'll need to get the forms from the council and sign them before Friday. As I listened for about 2 minutes, I was interrupted by the sound of my cat meowing, except that I could see my cat was asleep to the right of me. I dismissed it and resumed listening to my wife, but then I heard my cat meow again. At this point, I realized something wasn't right and tried to move my body, except I had sleep paralysis. I've had sleep paralysis a few times in the past, and I'm not particularly fazed by it. I am aware that in this state you are dreaming, your imagination can take over and you can hear things that aren't there. Anyway, I tried moving my arms. The best I could do was make them twitch. But as I kept trying and presumably becoming more awake, I began to twitch more violently and saw my wife wake up, and she thought I was having some kind of seizure, so she shook me in a bit of a panic. And when she broke me out of the sleep paralysis, and I was perfectly fine. Anyway, I'm going to see a doctor to ask for some sort of MRI or CT just to make sure I wasn't having some kind of nasty stroke or something, as the violent twitching sounds rather alarming and certainly scared my wife. For the record, I'm only 31 years old. But I am left wondering if I actually unintentionally listened to my wife's thoughts, and then funnily enough heard my cat's thoughts, which presented itself as a meow. In the morning, I asked if she remembered what she was thinking, dreaming, and she said, I don't know, probably university-related, though. This was before I told her about what happened. When reading other people's experiences, I thought telepathy proceeded through some sort of base language, i.e. I can hear the thoughts of a German person despite not knowing German. However, if my experience was a legit case of telepathy, why are my cat's thoughts still only meows? This is what makes me wonder if I was merely dreaming after all, so I'm interested if others have had telepathy or know of cases where the language wasn't understood. Anyway, I think we have something to lead into that in a minute. A somewhat strange event happened to me a few days ago. Oh, no, this is somehow it got in here twice. Okay, so it's not as long as I thought it was. It's in here 3 times. Why did it paste it 3 times?
For emphasis.
I guess so. So, yeah, there you go.
I've definitely had experience. Well, for one, I think it's obvious what happened here. The cat knew you were reading their thoughts, and they're like, oh, shit, he can hear me.
I mean, in a serious note, I was going to ask someone who knows more about cats, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but isn't meowing something cats specifically do to people?
Yes.
Like they don't meow like that at other cats.
Correct.
So that is kind of like the way a cat communicates with a person.
To the point where they seem to have dialects between languages, or at least countries, or cultures.
Really?
Yeah, there's something like that. My friend showed me a paper on how Japanese cats sound very different from our cats. It's just the way they modulate their vocal intonations is just different for that language, I guess, or the culture.
Yeah, because they're probably mimicking to some degree.
Yeah, it seems right. So I could see a cat definitely having thoughts in those sounds. I think that's the punchline.
It's not going to reveal all to you. Cat's like, oh, you can hear me. Meow.
Or we just don't understand the nuances in the sounds, and they have a really complex language like dolphins.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, they're furious at us because we keep hearing meow, and they're giving us this treatise on the structure of the universe. Stop rubbing my belly, you fool. Listen, this is important.
Or keep rubbing my belly while you listen to me.
Yes. The world is ending in pain and horror. Rub my belly, you swine.
So, yeah, I mean, that's, I've definitely never had that experience, even though I've been able to hear people's thoughts before. Yeah, that's a weird one. I don't know what to make of that. Certainly he could have been picking up on his wife's thoughts.
I mean, as detailed as they are, I would not doubt that. And at least building off of them somehow.
As far as the cat, who knows? Maybe he did pick something up from the cat, but he couldn't translate it, so it became a meow. I wouldn't think cats think like we do.
I mean, with all of the uncanny experiences I've had with non-humans in my vicinity, I don't remember them ever, except for the dream I had with my dog, when she was kind of speaking in it, but not really. She was just a human in it, and she was communicating something that was real and really actually happening. But she didn't really speak that much. She wasn't barking or anything, but I don't remember anything where there was an uncanny communication with language. Like, it didn't cross that barrier.
Yeah.
So I don't remember anything like that. In translation, I think maybe it just doesn't work that way. They just don't have brains that do that.
Right.
We would have to translate it in our own brain. Like, we'd have to sort of project the language onto it, I think.
I mean, an animal's experience of reality is so different than ours.
Yeah.
We assume.
Well,
yeah, to some extent, at least, and per species, we're all different species.
well, yeah, we notice different things because we've evolved in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but it's also the thing of like we were just talking about, we don't have that one-to-one relative way to communicate, so we can make these theories and assumptions that animals would have such drastically different perceptions and views of reality and everything, but we have no way to actually examine that.
Well, we know, for instance, like dogs can pick up enormous amounts of information from scents. Obviously, we can't do that, not on the same level.
I mean, I've heard some compelling stories where people felt like they had brief telepathic connections with other animals and experienced something so utterly different from what they do that they couldn't describe it. Not adequately, at least. Like, from their perspective, the way they see things, the sort of like the field of vision would be different, all of that stuff, and it just wouldn't translate back to being in the human mind. So they couldn't describe it.
And, cats and dogs can hear more than a human being can. They can see more of the spectrum than we can. But, what is it? Dogs can't see all the color spectrum we can.
Yeah, they've just got like a kind of like I think the blue-yellow sort of gradient for their vision.
But they can see in the dark better, and they can pick up other frequencies that we can't.
Their world is very olfactory based.
Yeah, but he also talked about what was the thing he was talking about? Other languages. You both, Brennan, you and Natalie, both had something where you got words in another language, right? Or was it Matt?
Yeah, oh, yeah. In dreams, yeah. I've had a couple moments of telepathy as well. I definitely, there was one time where I was in a group of people and a friend, we were all watching something together, and a friend from across the room looked at me and said something extraordinarily foul. And I was shocked that they would say this out loud in a group of people. But then I realized no one else reacted, and they smiled at me. And I realized they said it, but I was the only one who heard it. And we were all it was a quiet room, and we were all watching the same thing.
Wait, so they knew that you'd heard this somehow?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We talked about it. They don't know how they did it. They just know that they thought it. And so, according to them, they never said it out loud. They thought it.
Did they think it at you?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So it was intentional.
It was an intentional thing.
Quite literal inside joke.
Right. Yeah. And then there was the time, again, I've probably told this story 100 times on the show, but there was the time when I was working for the ferry company, and there was a woman who didn't quite understand how, being called to board a boat worked. So I was explaining that, if, they'll call your name, they'll say Mrs., and I pulled the name Beetlebaum. Mrs. Beetlebaum, please come to the front desk. And she looked at me and said, "Oh, my cat's name is Beetlebaum. How did you know that?"
Also, 100%, I thought you meant Fey folk at first. Like you worked for a company in the Fey folk. Just made sense.
That's where my mind went to.
I've been accused of having leprechaun energy, so.
So it's probably your best kept secret. I shouldn't have outed you, sorry.
You fool.
Does that mean you have a pot of gold somewhere?
I mean, I got a lot of Diet Pepsis in my fridge.
Fair enough. So that was who else had the language thing?
Matt, you didn't have anything like that?
I mean, I did. My dream story is kind of a long one if you wanted to give your example or story first.
I have to swim through all of these documents, so please do.
Okay, so let me there were two parts to I probably won't even tell the first part because it's so completely unrelated to the dream. It was just an interesting experience that I hadn't realized happened the same day as this. So let me...
I mean, if you're not comfortable with it, but otherwise I'm actually very curious. It sounds very interesting.
No,
I feel like it
comfortable
relates.
with it. It's something I've talked about in other places. Again, it is so totally unconnected to the dream. I just hadn't realized this also happened the same day as the dream. So yeah, let me go ahead and tell that one because that's a shorter bit.
Okay.
So the room that is now my art studio previously had been a bedroom that I just had to completely clear out, renovate, do everything in it. So in that process, obviously, I had totally emptied the room, cleaned it top to bottom, and during the process of fixing things up, re-cleaned it multiple times. So the room was essentially spotless at this point. This was, I don't have an exact timeline pulled up, but I'd say within the first month or so of having gotten the room like actually settled as a studio. So it was really surprising since I had, cleaned the floors and everything so many times that under the chair at my drawing desk, I found this huge, not huge, but like about an inch or so shard of broken glass. Nothing in the room had shattered. Like I said, had cleaned it so recently. There was nothing else on the floor but this giant chunk of broken glass. I'm like, okay, this is really weird. I have no way to explain that. But again, it's just finding a piece of garbage on the floor. I just threw it out and didn't think of it.
Right.
So while all of this was going on in that relative time frame, I had made a specific blend of incense for myself that I had intended to use just for ritual purposes. And that was the way I had intended to use it. I did it with, I'm not going to go into the details. That's, personal magical stuff, but it was something I had intended just for those kinds of purposes. But over time, every time I used it, I couldn't help thinking like, oh, not to be full of myself, but wow, this incense turned out pretty well. I just really like the smell of it. So eventually I just started more and more using it just casually as a regular incense. And every single time I did that, there was always, this nagging little voice at the back of my mind going like, no, dude, this is something you intended just for this specific semi-sacred purpose. You shouldn't be burning it just whenever you want to smell nice. But, being idiot that I am, I constantly put that out of my mind until one day, this was the day after I had found that shard of broken glass on the floor. I was sitting in that chair in that spot and getting ready to burn more of the incense. And the glass jar I was keeping it in just shattered in my hand. And not just in the sense of like an old beat up jar breaking, like forcibly shattered to the point like chunks sprayed in my face.
Wow.
But regardless of how dramatic a breaking of the glass was, I didn't have a scratch on me anywhere. No blood, nothing. So needless to say, it got the point across of like, stop doing that.
Did a piece end up under the chair?
I mean, it literally crumbled to pieces and shattered everywhere. So there were chunks of it. Like I had to sweep up and everything. It went everywhere.
Well, one of them may have gone back in time.
Yeah. So how do you explain that? I mean, it's obviously kind of like presaging it, right?
That's the only sense I can make of it.
Was it the same kind of glass? Did it like match in any way?
Not exactly. It was the same type of regular clear glass, but it was much thicker than the jar itself.
Yeah, that's what I was imagining.
So it couldn't be like a literal piece of the jar, but it was a similar type of glass.
And you didn't keep it?
No, again, because nothing dramatic had happened that I would make that kind of association of it being like, this is an important thing. I just thought it as like a weird anomalous piece of garbage on the floor. So I just threw it out at the time.
Yeah, as you would. Yeah. Wow.
So that was part one, right?
So yeah, again, that has absolutely nothing to do connected to the dream story I wanted to tell. I just didn't realize until I went back through my notes to refresh my memory on the dream that had happened the exact same day as the dream I wanted to talk about.
Okay. And I mean, I found that a lot working on my autobiography, not realizing, all this stuff happened like within days of one another when I thought they were like spaced out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that doesn't surprise me that you had something weird like that happen and then also a weird dream.
So I'm not going to read my journal one-to-one. Just for one thing, I'm really bad at reading out loud, but also I need to like redact the personal details.
Sure.
Of course, yeah.
Also, because my journal is so weirdly, not stream of consciousness, but I'm just bad at recording stuff coherently. So there's a lot of details that are just out of order and everything. So computer, what are you doing? There we go. To lead up to this, the jar shattered. That day I went to sleep, and then this is the dream recorded from that night. As I was going to sleep that night, for whatever reason, as mind wandering while you lay awake waiting to fall asleep, I had been thinking about the fact that I hardly ever have, or not hardly ever, but it's extremely rare that I have moments of lucid dreaming. And when I do, it is so just fleetingly brief. Like I'll become lucid and like, for whatever reason, instantly get snapped out of the dream and wake up. So that's what I had been thinking about leading up to this. The dream itself, if there was something leading into this, I don't remember it. My recollection and my recording of it starts with me wandering down a city street that it's a place very identifiable as a modern sort of city, but it's no location that I had ever seen anything like before. It was a fairly narrow street, and on either side, the skyscrapers just sort of swept up in a curving sort of fashion, each building looking, again, just because I live there, similar to Chicago in that while they are all, these mega structure skyscrapers in design, they each have their own unique architecture and personality to them. But going up beyond the skyscrapers, that same curving slope continues beyond them to see these giant red sandstone cliffs that the skyscrapers were sort of built along into this natural valley. And on the portion of the stone poking up behind the buildings, I could see these enormous pictographs carved into the stone and painted beyond the buildings. So this is, not a landscape that was reflective of any not natural, that's the wrong word for a city, but no location you can actually pin down. So I'm very much in an other place. And I can realize this in the dream, like I just don't understand where I am, essentially feeling like a person lost in a foreign city. So I'm wandering around, not sure of where I am or like how to even find my way to wherever I was trying to get to. So at some point I just sit down on the curb, like gathering my thoughts, trying to decide what to do. And while I'm sitting there on the curb, a man walking by, you see a random scruffy looking dude like me sitting on the curb, or at least my presumption is he thought I was a homeless person and handed me some money. Looking at the money, it was paper currency of the same size and shape of our regular currency, but the paper was different. It was an ordinary paper, not the weird sort of paper we use specifically for paper money here. It had a different texture to it it was a standard printing type paper, but of really, I don't know if you've ever felt like fine art quality print paper, but it had that sort of velvety texture to it and that sort of substantial weight in it.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean.
And the currency itself, again, in terms of like the design, was structured the way American currency is, but it was sort of a faded purple and yellow color. And I could read the text on it in the sense of I recognize and understand what all of these letters are, and I can intuit the meaning of these words, but I did not recognize any of them. The name of this place that I was in was clearly written on the dollar or whatever it was he handed me. It was spelled in a very strange way. I transcribed this in my notes, but I'm not sure if that was exactly how it was or just my best reconstruction. It was BVRMESE. There might have been a double E or S in there somewhere, which, is just garbled nonsense to us. But in the dream, I understood that was the place name and also that it was phonetically pronounced like the word blame.
I couldn't follow it. It was B something? B-E?
BVRMESE.
It reminds me of something that like a Ouija would spell out.
Right.
And mean something that you wouldn't know what it was.
That's Burmese, just with a V.
Oh, kind of. Yeah, that's neat.
It also seems like something a black metal band would do.
Right. Let's replace the U with a V.
Right.
Very cult.
Wow.
So,
love that.
This is like just the very beginning of the dream. This was a long one. So eventually, I'm not sure after this what inspired me to do this. There are some gaps in my recording, but eventually I went inside one of these buildings, again, maybe just to ask information. But I realized once I went inside the building that these skyscrapers I was seeing outside on the street were just the tiniest portion of this city. The majority of it was this enormous underground superstructure, and every single building I was seeing was just the surface portion of it, each one all connected under the ground, and the buildings I was seeing were like the teeth of a skeleton. They're just that tiny visible portion of this massive interconnected superstructure beneath.
What a fascinating metaphor.
Thank you. So the look of this structure beneath was so diametrically opposed to the outside. Like I said, the buildings themselves, they were detailed in each unique with its own sort of design and personality, but all very similar in the sense of skyscraper-ish, lots of concrete, metal, glass, the look, different stoneworks and whatnot. But beneath, it was all not uniformly white. There were lots of different shades of just off-whites and things, and all very bare and empty. But it didn't have the feel of that, sterile, antiseptic, designed by committee office building look to it. Rather, it had more the perceptual feeling of being a blank canvas onto which the inhabitants of this city could, build and design and make whatever they wanted on. And that's very much what the living spaces of this underground structure were like. You'd be in the hallways and it was just bare white with some, off-white designs here and there. But inside each room and building had its own, dramatically different, detailed design uniqueness to it, as unique as the people that lived there.
That's amazing.
So it's while I'm wandering through this underground structure, I think because wherever I entered in the surface building that connected to this woman's living space underground that I met, and at least from my point of view, it's unique that this is all I describe her as, considering how obviously long and detailed my dreams are. I just call her a short-haired woman, and that's the only description I give of her throughout this entire thing.
That sounds like how I would do something.
So I meet this woman. I'm following her around. She's kind of realizes I'm lost and out of place and is just showing me around this place. She takes me first through some hallways and then into the living space or office of her father. And it's very, if you ever seen the office of a professor that has tenure or something where it's just this chaos of books and papers everywhere, it had that kind of look to it. And excuse me, I don't know what, if anything, this means, but in my mind, I had this weird association of him being both a doctor and a lawyer, but neither of those jobs specifically. I think my brain just trying to make sense of him being a professional of some kind. So I'm talking with the short-haired woman while she goes through her father's office, and she goes to one of the bookcases in the back looking for something. Eventually, she finds a folder of paperwork, takes it out, and then we continue out of there. And also at this point, I should mention that the design of this underground space was of such drastically different proportions to anything you would normally see. Not in the sense of the Lovecraftian thing with Cyclopean architecture where everything is just disproportionately large. It was all very obviously designed for normal human-sized people, but it was built on a scale as if physical space was no restriction or concern whatsoever. Hallways would be as wide as a house. There would be auditorium-sized rooms. It was just enormous on a ridiculous scale. So after she gets that folder of paperwork, we go into, I guess, sort of a multi-purpose common area. It was just a wide open room in one of the, bare white spaces filled with tables. And again, while it was huge, there were only a handful of other people milling about doing whatever. We sit down at one of these tables, and it's in kind of an awkward way. We're sitting opposite to one another, but at an angle. I'm not sure why we were offset like that, but it was a weird way to just have a conversation. And she gives me one of the papers from this folder. It's a test of some sort that I'm intended to fill out. Again, the paper is very weird and different. It feels brittle. It's incredibly thin and yellow, and the ink on it is really faded. If you've ever seen old carbon paper,
that's
it
what I
looks
was
like the carbon.
I was going to ask. Yeah.
Showing my age with that one.
Yeah. We both know.
So I'm going through this test, and I'm not sure how to describe it. Not like a cognitive test, but some similar sort of evaluation. It had things I'm sorry, I'm trying to limit the amount of times I say I know that I do that. Every time I listen back to an episode, I'm stop saying that so much. It had questions that were on the order of, here's a topic, circle all the words from list that are related to it, that kind of thing. And again, I can read this document in the sense of I can see all of these letters and words and recognize that, but can't actually read in the sense of knowing what these words are. I stumble my way through the test because she's also taking it, but I had the sense that she was only taking the test as well as a means of showing me how to do it via example.
Yeah.
And it's while I'm taking this test that I'm trying to articulate to her that I can't actually read any of this. And what I end up doing is I blurt out, I'm sorry, I can't read this. I'm dreaming. And like as the words leave my mouth, that's the same moment I realize that myself. They're like, oh, I'm like in a dream right now.
Right.
And the moment I realize that, I can, have that same sensation of like trying to be snapped out of the dream and pulled back up to reality. But I am in some way able to resist at that time. I can even like trying to stop saying like so often. I see my field of vision blur as if I'm being pulled away rapidly, but I'm able to eventually focus and stay in the moment. And her response to this is, again, the most just interesting and baffling thing of blurting out in that situation. I'm sorry, I'm in a dream. She says, yeah, I know, I'm dreaming too. And then just wanders away.
Oh.
That's exactly what I was wondering, is when I've had these dreams, I've often felt like I'm with other dreamers. It's an uncanny feeling, but it's very specific. I love that.
So the next portion of the dream, I'm probably going to leave out because it doesn't get into details of personal stuff, but looking back in retrospect, it might be. So I'm just going to edit that out.
Yeah, that's fine.
Short version of that, the short-haired woman and I end up looking for another older woman. We see her teaching a class of some kind, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
So story of the dream skips ahead, and I end up back outside of the underground superstructure, whatever you want to call it. I'm with a group of people. There's me, the short-haired woman, the woman we were looking for, the guy who gave me the $1 on the street, and a few other people. We're in a very desolate-looking environment. It's all the same sort of rough sandstone type rock that I saw from beyond the skyscrapers initially, but in just, flat, desolate in all directions, basically just a desert. But within that, there's one building that we're all crowded around, and it's the same floor plan and design of an ordinary house, but on a much narrower scale, in the sense of, imagine just, a house, but like the floor plan is one room, but many, many stories up. So it's this kind of incredibly narrow tower with the aesthetic design of a regular suburban house. And as we're looking at that, even though it's not overtly said, I intuitively understand that like even this house out in the middle of some desert somewhere is still connected to that massive structure underground. So the reason we're at that house is we are trying to lure out some negative person, entity, some kind of malevolent presence that is within that house, which is also somehow representative of my body, that house, I mean. So the way we go about doing this is circling around to the back of the house and doing something. Again, I didn't record this. I think it had already slipped my memory at that point. Something to lure it up to the front door of this house. We eventually are able to do that, and it's just typical shadow person, dark figure that's there. And unfortunately, I don't have a satisfying climax to all of this because I'd been interrupted writing so many times, the details pretty precipitously drop off after that point.
That's
But we
familiar.
were like just trying to lure this being, entity, whatever you want to call it, outside of the house. And that's basically where the dream ends.
So there was no success in doing that?
I'm not sure. It really kind of drops off after that point in the attempt of getting it up to the door and out like that.
I had so many questions while you were telling me that, but telling us that, and I was looking through all my dreams so I couldn't type them. So I forgot most of them now, but there are so many relatable elements in there. I'll let somebody else go first.
I don't know. Go ahead.
I was going to say, while you were telling us that, Matt, I was digging through. I was trying to find if there's any historical evidence of sort of underground cities like you're describing, even sort of close to it. And I wondered, have you ever looked at the photos of the Turkish city of, I think it's Darren Kuju?
Oh, yeah, I've seen, and Seriah, has talked about his dream of
Cappadocia and stuff.
Yeah, Cappadocia and living in these things. It was the same concept as that, but the scale of this thing was like basically as if every building on Earth were all connected by this same underground massive city or whatever you want to call it.
Makes me think it's just like a hyper literal collective unconscious or something.
Yeah, like here's another detail that I just saw as I was scrolling back through it. It was that massive and interconnected that when I first met the short-haired woman and asked if the reason she was there is if the building I had wandered into accidentally was her house, her response was confusion at the concept of a building, like as an individual structure that didn't make sense to her.
I often wonder if we meet people in dreams and they're also dreaming, if they're hearing what we think we're saying to them, because there's going to be something lost in translation. They might be hearing something garbled or confusing, or they have no idea. You know what I mean?
Or it's going to be mixed with dream imagery.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember,
or if just because you're having a shared dream, are you having the same dream? Like, would their perception of everything be a completely different experience of that same interaction?
Oh, that really makes me want to segue into one of mine. I want to remember. I want to keep on your dream, but I had one recently that's very relevant to that, actually. And I was given the green light to talk about it, so I can.
What were you going to say, Brennan?
I was just going to say that reminded me of a dream I had 5 or 6 years ago now, where I was in a high school gymnasium. There was a dance happening, and it wasn't my high school. I was just like passing through. But then one of my uncles opened a door and almost walked into me, and he looked at me and he said, "Brennan, what the bleep are you doing here?" And I kind of looked at him and said, "I don't know. I think I'm dreaming." And then I woke up. And we don't talk, and I wish we did, because I would love to know if that night he dreamed of bumping into me somewhere.
Oh, I was really hoping you were going to follow that.
His high school.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wonder if if you ever contact him, you should ask.
Honestly, he's a lovely guy, but he's so square. I don't think he would ever tell me.
Oh, that's disappointing.
That's assuming he remembered.
That too, yeah, because it was, as I said, 5-6 years ago. I think it might have been pre-pandemic. But he just walked into it was like, there's red lights, and there's a dance behind me. And he's like, "What?" And he just looked really kind of surprised and annoyed, which is like kind of how I imagine he would greet me if I saw him in person. Because again, it's not like we're close or anything, but I always wondered.
And the thing is, like, I know numerous people who will tell me they don't dream. And I'm like, yeah, you do. You just don't remember.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's, did he remember the dream? Just because you did doesn't mean he did.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And again, he's very Catholic too, so it may just be that even if he did remember it, he would conveniently forget.
Right. Did you find yours, Natalie?
I've got a bunch, but that was when we were going to talk about different languages. Now I went off on a completely different path. Plus, I had more questions. There's something very familiar, and I think a lot of people who do lucid dreaming probably have similar parallels and things in their experiences, but houses representing the unconscious or the brain seems to be a very common thing, or like a building. I know before I was diagnosed with the pineal cystic tumor, I had one dream where I was led to it I had to go to the center of my brain, but I didn't know that because it was represented by this gigantic building with sort of like beige pink walls. So it was kind of the color of the inside of my brain. I didn't realize that until I was well awake, but I had to go to the center, like the actual, where there's cerebral spinal fluid and space there. But in the dream, it was this gigantic empty space with my pineal cyst, and it was kind of sentient and stuff. But anyway, the whole point being, I was shown that there were like these extra parts, like it was this tumorous kind of out of control thing. Not that it was growing out of control, but that it was not well. And then I woke up and I just kind of assumed something. I was like, I wonder if I'll ever find anything in there. This was years before. I think I had a good 4 or 5 years before I was diagnosed. But it was one of the dreams that really stuck with me because it felt like it was a journey into my brain, but also this giant building. So I was meeting kind of parts of my immune system and things like that, but there were people. It was very strange, but that was kind of a literal one-to-one or like translation of brain to building rather than just subconscious to sort of a structure, which usually is in my dreams. So yeah. But it does connect to other spaces. That's a really common experience for me, not just in lucid dreams, but dreams in general. So it'll be like a familiar house, one that I've probably visited, but it'll be like a permutation of it or something. But I will start traveling through it and into unfamiliar spaces where I feel like I meet people that are not part of my subconscious, and they'll seem like they're asleep as well. Like we're just kind of wandering together through this unknown space, and it's very strange like that. It's not quite as beautiful as what you describe all the time, but it's effective, I guess. It's like, it's kind of like the idea of the dream mall that people talk about. There's a whole subreddit based on it.
What's it called?
The mall. I don't remember.
Dream Mall.
Yeah,
okay. I thought you said mold.
No. I mean, maybe. But just like those giant mall spaces, infinite IKEAs, things like that, tend to be these sort of liminal spaces where it feels like you're kind of outside of your mind, and in this, because your brain associates it with a communal space, I think. Whereas your home, it'll be like a home, right? It's part of your own mind, because you associate that more with like the non-liminal, the comforts of just sort of being in your house. I think.
I was just going to say, since we don't really have, third spaces in America anymore, that kind of mall space really is the only sort of communal environment that we do have.
Now we just can hope for sneaking into a dead mall. Just, urban exploration. But I was going to ask, I was going to ask if you were like you were initially lucid and then you weren't lucid and then you came back to the lucidity?
No, that was another strange thing I forgot to mention. I was, after that point that I had said that, I was completely lucid in the sense that I understood I was dreaming.
Right.
But I had no control whatsoever. I wasn't able to manipulate or change anything. I was just aware that this space I was in was a dream.
So like in the observer kind of dream, but it wasn't a movie. It was just
it was
actually
like in all other senses, it was a regular passive dream. I was just aware that it was a dream.
That's very strange. I don't know if I've had that. I've had ones where I observe because it's like a movie. And I will occasionally, intermittently interact with it, but I won't necessarily be lucid either. But then it was interesting that when you got to the point of lucidity where you could speak and report that you couldn't read the words, that's when it almost woke you up.
Yeah, I could feel it pulling me. Yeah. Again, I'm not sure what this means or if it has any meaning, but when in the incredibly rare instances where I have had glimpses of lucidity like this in dreams, I'm aware of my physical body, but where I am in the dream space relative to my body is always essentially, if it was in a physical space, like deep underground, like I'm so much lower than where my body is. That's why when I thought I was going to be woken up, it felt like I was being pulled upward.
That's interesting. I do have the disconnect between dream body and physical body. Like I've had that. I just had recently, like the last couple of weeks, had an out of body experience kind of thing that was interesting, I guess. To me, they happen every now and then, so it's not that miraculous or anything. But I just sort of realized that I was in the sleep paralysis stage, and then I sort of rolled out of my body and stood up, and then it was just sort of it's kind of. Because I wear a mask, like a sleep mask, so I can't see the room anymore. But I was still struggling to, I guess, get into my dream body and not connect it to my sleeping body. Because as soon as I do that, I go back into the sleep paralysis or dream where I wake up. So it's like this delicate balance of trying to stay out in that state. But this time it felt so viscerally real. I didn't know. I couldn't be sure if I was actually dreaming or if I was just kind of like in a sleepwalk state. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be embarrassing if I go downstairs. Because you're awake and I'm just going to come stumbling down the stairs. And so I'm standing there in my room. And the one thing that kind of clued me in is lighting doesn't work the same in that out-of-body experience. Everything looks identical, but it's as if lighting is overblown. So where my eyes would mitigate the lighting, it's like I can see everything. It's kind of like night vision or something. And it's cast in this kind of blue light, but it does look legitimately like I'm standing there. So I get through the door and that goes fine, and I'm going to go down the steps. And as I'm going down the steps, I'm again not sure. I can feel the steps under my feet. I went through all the motions just in case, like I put on like a sweatshirt, and I'm going down the steps, and I felt like I went through like a force field as I'm going down the steps. And at that point, I could see the light behind the curtain change, and I'm like, wait, I don't. Everything looked like it should. I go through the curtain, and it's a completely different space. It was as if something shifted in the dream, and I went into a different space entirely. Whereas I've done out of body experiences here, and it was identical enough to see, like, that's where I was able to see infrared from the camera lights and things.
Oh, right.
And they were overwhelming, and this space was exactly as it is, but this time it was something shifted and threw me into like a parallel space. But it was just kind of interesting from there. But that was probably the best part of the dream. It was just so strange to go through that like portal or whatever I did and stay lucid. I remained lucid through most of the dream.
Can you talk a little bit more about how light looks when you're in that kind of state?
Yeah. And this has been stable since I was 17. Like, I have never seen it different. And that's what fascinates me. So I know it's not my imagination. It's just something different. It's not like even in a dream. If I dream of the space, the lighting might be different or something like that, you know, something might be just off. But in this case, the space looks identical. Everything is exactly the way it should be, down to the detail. But light is overblown, like if you overexpose it in a camera. If you just leave the shutter open, that's what it looks like, with maybe a slight blue tinge. Every single time. And this is so if it's during the day that this happens, it's like a blinding light everywhere. I can still see, but it's like in a way, I'm not seeing with my eyes, so I don't have to worry about that. It's not like I'm squinting or something because it's too bright. It's like lighting from everywhere and it's unfiltered or something. I don't know how to describe that. I'm doing
and
a
there
terrible
are no
job.
shadows. It's sort of an omnidirectional light.
It is very omnidirectional. I don't know if it's because it's just so strong that, there's enough shadow for definition, but there aren't dark shadows unless the room was dark to begin with. But there's still abundant light. So in this case, like my room is pretty dark at night, but there are outside lights and there's light leak around the curtains. So I can kind of see enough to stumble around in there if I'm actually awake. But in this case, it was like that lighting was just really strong, like overblown. Far more than it would be, but the light was still the same. It was from the same sources. So when I came downstairs in that other dream I was just mentioning from last year or the year before, and I did not expect this. I stumbled down the stairs. It was dark inside the house except for the infrared from the cameras, and that was shocking to my brain. I hated it. It was this flickering, overwhelming, sort of beaming light from all of the cameras all at once toward me, and I just wanted to get away from it. It was just overwhelming so badly. But again, like not eyes, it was like it was just going directly into my nervous system somehow from that position.
Which is also interesting considering the Keith Linder's Seattle Demon House case, where Steve Mera said one of the EVPs they caught is when they turned on the infrared camera and it shot out the infrared beam, and one of the EVPs said, "Oh, we don't like that."
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because one of my innumerable hobbies is playing around with infrared photography, and that is a shockingly accurate description of seeing infrared light. It is just so, even tiny infrared light sources are so intense. And,
I didn't
but
expect
when you're not looking directly at the light source, though, it sort of has this very diffuse brightness to it where you can see every detail. And
so it's interesting though, because it's like my brain is trying to recreate it's like a body experience, right?
Mhm.
So I do have kind of a forward, normal human field of vision. However, there's still that 360 aspect because I don't have eyes. I don't have a skull. So even when I was turned away from the cameras, it was like it was beaming directly into me. And it was overwhelming and I couldn't get away from it. So I just raced out of the room, and there were still cameras doing that, but it wasn't as bad as like inside the living room. It was like I got a migraine. I actually woke up with a headache from it.
Yeah, this studio definitely has more cameras than anywhere else.
And so that's where I exit from the steps. And then I just went into the kitchen. There were still cameras doing that, but it wasn't as bad. But again, I could see where it would be really, really dark normally because all the lights were off. I was able to see because of this weird lighting aspect. Like there's just, it is kind of omnipresent, but I feel like it's because it's almost like cat vision or something, right? Like it's taking the ambient light that is there and just amplifying it. I don't know. That's the only way to describe it. And it sounds totally cuckoo bananas, but it's been the first time I experienced it, I was 17 and I was just, I was so confused.
I'm sure.
I didn't intend to get out of body. I thought I was awake. Yeah, so.
I can't remember which book it was in, but one of Strieber's out-of-body experiences, he talks about being able to see electricity.
Yeah.
That it looked sort of like fur or something radiating out of power cables.
I vaguely remember that.
I've had entities tell me they can see like that. I had no idea about this. Where did he say that?
It was in one of, I've only read, it wasn't in Communion, so it was either Transformation or, what was the one? Supernatural. It was in one of those two, because those are the only 3 Strieber books I've read.
I need to look that's fascinating.
Well, Supernatural is him and Kripal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
or they alternate chapters.
Yeah, but it's actually, most of his chapters come from solving the communion enigma.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because that book did terrible for some reason, and it's a really good book. And then, so he took a lot of that and put it into Supernatural. Because that had some really crazy experiences in it.
I will have to check that out.
So, well, if you've read Supernatural, you basically read Solving the Communion Enigma. So, but yeah, almost all those stories come from that book. And I think he did that because that book did so poorly, and he wanted to get that stuff out there. So, it's just about time we could take a break, and then we will come back and discuss dreams some more. Quick mid-show break here. recommendation and some contact info. Contact info simple. WhereDidTheRoadGo.com has everything you could need to get a hold of us, all our social media, and a link tree to all of my personal stuff as well as shows going all the way back to the very first one. And I've slowly been populating the RSS feed with 2014 shows. 2013 are up on there. 2014 are getting up on there about once a week. I put another show up along with a new show. So eventually the podcast feed hopefully will have everything. If you want to become a patron, it's only $3. It helps out immensely. So if you like the show, join up. You get extra content with every show, pretty much every show. Every once in a while, there's one that doesn't have extra content. But you also get the shows weeks early, commercial-free, and extra stuff on top of all of that. As for a recommendation, I'm going to go with a movie called Censor, Censor. Came out in 2021. I'll read you the descriptor. After viewing a strangely familiar video nasty, Enid, a film censor, sets out to solve the past mystery of her sister's disappearance, embarking on a quest that dissolves the line between fiction and reality. It is, it's fascinating because the fact that people like that exist, this takes place in like the 70s or 80s, that they would have people watch films and decide if other people could see them. And that's such a strange idea to me. Like, well, why do they get to decide? Why do they get to watch them? It's not harmful for them to watch them. And that's kind of what it gets into a little bit. But yeah, she starts to lose touch with reality and it gets kind of weird. And by the end, it's just bizarre. It ends like an Italian horror movie. You have no idea what you just watched. However, I thought it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. So that's my recommendation. It's not a raving recommendation, but it's definitely, it might be something you're interested in. So there you go. Censor. Now back to the show. So this is our dream show with Natalie, Brennan, and Matt. And Brennan, you had some comments while your mic wasn't working.
Yeah, it has been that kind of day. So, Natalie, you were talking about the Cat's Vision thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember about, I can't remember if it was during the pandemic or just before. I feel like it was just before. A friend of mine actually came to me and said, hey, I know this sounds crazy, but at night she was seeing in the manner you're describing.
What?
Yeah.
Like while awake?
While awake. We would be going for drives and she'd say, look, I don't know how to make this make sense, but when I look into the shadows, I can see everything. It's like, it's not dark to me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good description of it.
Yeah, I feel like it happened during a period of extreme duress in her life.
That tracks, yeah.
She was going through a lot, and then this started happening. And then it almost seemed to pass as quickly as it came. Like I don't think it stuck around. But it was very, very odd because she would say, I know it seems dark, but like I can see like there's two squirrels in there. And to me, it was just pitch black.
It's the two squirrel vision.
Exactly.
That's amazing. But that's exactly how, I didn't even think of that until. Good thing I retold that because I didn't think of that aspect of it being like, how it is like an open aperture or something, like a cat's eyes would do in the gloom like that. But it's in a dream. I would love to see things when I'm awake like that. That would be much more convenient.
Also, although I do remember having dreams when I was a really little kid where I would wake up. In the dream, I'd wake up and it would be like all around me, the light was bright.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't open my eyes. It was like my eyes were permanently like somehow stuck closed and slightly teary.
Interesting.
Go
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's kind of interesting because I didn't mention with that most recent out-of-body experience, when I stood up, I couldn't open my right eye. It was like stuck shut. So it just kept going until my dream body understood what was happening. But it just reminded me it was interesting that my eye was stuck shut like that.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So this was like both eyes. Like both eyes were like, imagine you're suddenly woken up and the lights are turned on and you can't, like you're waiting for your eyes to adjust so you don't want to open your eyes too
right.
Like that, but you can't open them at all. And it's because it's too bright. It's so bright, you can see like a tiny sliver of yellow at the bottom of your vision, but your eyes are otherwise like too heavy to open and too like teary.
Oh, wow, you're reminding me of stuff because I had that as a young child when my mom would come wake me up for school and she turned the big light on and it was still dark out and it was like a reflex to keep my eyes shut like that. I couldn't open them. It just hurt too much. Wow. And so the dream was like that?
Yeah, a handful of times I had these dreams where I would just say I couldn't open my eyes because it was too bright and I was almost like I was being led somewhere.
I mean, that's like classic abduction
That's a great
descriptions,
thought.
isn't it? Yeah, like the
Cool.
bright light, can't open your eyes, get led somewhere.
Did you wake up with any implants?
I mean, these boobs, but they're great, so I don't mind.
That's the implants you want.
I've had, and the only other person I know that has had this experience, sometimes when I'm trying to go to sleep, I'm in a completely dark room, I close my eyes, and it feels like someone's shining a light on me. This is not in a dream state, though. This is like as soon as I close my eyes. And sometimes I'm like, did I leave a light on? I'll open my eyes, be like, nope, it's completely dark until I close my eyes.
I actually get that. I just thought it was part of the pineal cyst thing.
Huh.
I get it fairly frequently, actually, probably like once a week. It's very annoying, though.
It is very annoying.
I do not like it.
So, aside from you, the only other person that's had that experience that I'm aware of is Jeremy Vaney.
Really?
He just mentioned it in passing, and I'm like, someone else has had this?
I wonder if it's just like your optic nerve is activated in a certain way.
Maybe.
That makes it feel like there's light, because it's what's responsible for those flashes and stuff sometimes.
Right.
So it's like that illusion of light in your eyeball.
Maybe
I had
Seriah's
a-
picking up on your experience.
Oh no, it's contagious.
Oh, it's happened a lot longer than you've been here.
Yeah. Well, then you gave it to me, I guess.
What were you say, Brennan?
It went right out of my head.
All right, excellent.
We were talking about the lights thing.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was doing the sort of the Om chant.
Yeah.
And so I've experimented with that off and on. Not so much now, but when I was younger, I was experimenting with that. And I remember one time I really got into like a flow state with it. And this blue light, I was actually in a completely dark room with my eyes closed, but all of a sudden this blue light started pooling in my vision.
Nice.
And it was like, it started to fill my entire field of vision. And so it was like I was looking at a clear blue sky, but my eyes were closed in a dark room.
Oh, that sounds nice.
It was nice. It was strange though. Like it was almost like I had to stop myself from panicking.
Like you're
Because
giving
it was
yourself a
so-
stroke with the ohms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or
Went
just like,
overboard.
I don't know, like something is wrong. Why is this happening? Because again, it was totally dark and now I'm seeing some kind of light.
So do you mean what the space you were looking at was being illuminated by a blue light, or just a blue light was taking over your field of vision?
The latter, yeah, because my eyes were closed. So it's almost like, you see that sort of dark field when you close your eyes. This is black.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that slowly, like imagine in front, kind of like what Seriah is saying, like it's like outside you, there would have to be like a really bright blue light for it to be shining through your eyelids like this.
Nice. I like that.
I mean, there was the
So it's
time
like-
there was the time I woke up and everything had a blue tint to it. That
When
freaked me
Sutter
out.
Kane was there on the bus.
Yeah, that would panic me for other reasons. other than
Well, I
that's
thought there was something wrong with my eyes or my brain or something, and I'm just like, what? Why is everything blue?
It makes me nervous because I had a great aunt who she woke up one day and everything was chartreuse. Like I just completely chartreuse. She said she could see everything, but it was as if she had chartreuse glasses.
Right, yeah.
And so she went into the hospital, and it turned out she had a huge aneurysm pushing on the optic
Oh, wow.
part of her brain.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I mean, mine resolved in like maybe 10 seconds.
It might have just been pressure on that part of your brain
Maybe.
or something, but like,
Way
yeah,
I was
hers didn't go
sleeping or
away.
something. Who knows?
Yeah, I think she went in after like 2 days of it just not resolving.
I don't remember if anything else was happening around that time because I know I noted it down, but I don't have any access to that right now. I'd have to find it.
That's why you got to bring your laptops out like I did, dutifully.
I've definitely had optical, like that kind of stuff when sometimes I sleep on my, like straight down on my face, and my pillow will like kind of press on my eyes, so I'll wake up and all kinds of crap and corruption will be happening, and I'll start to lose my mind. Then I go, no wait, you were just pinned face down into the pillow. You
It's just
clown.
normal. You were just suffocating. It's okay.
Yeah, totally. What could possibly go wrong? Like it's one of the reasons I started wearing a sleep mask is so at least it's like not pressing as hard into my eyes.
Wow, nice. Yeah, it's kind I use.
And Brennan, did you have some dream stories or something as well?
I mean, I do. I just don't know how much of it I've shared here because as I mentioned, I was going to listen to the previous episode, so I didn't duplicate anything, but I did get around to it. I mean, I had a lot of odd stuff when I was a kid, and most of my dreams now are really just kind of me talking to myself in a lot of ways, like me just sort of actively working past psychological blockages or working issues.
Yeah.
I mean, the one dream that I had that I'm working on turning it into a story. But it was such a fantastical dream that it's hard to, I can't find a way to like work it out into, this is just me figuring out X. And in the dream, I heard a scream and I called my friends and they heard it too. And it was our other friend who we thought was dead, but he's still very clearly alive and in pain. And in the dream, we had all faced off against this monster. And when we were near it, and then for a time afterwards, being near it seemed to connect our thoughts. So we could talk, we could hear each other's thoughts. And it was very strong. So we ended up crushing it under these rocks. But because it had our other friend, he got crushed too. And so we thought he had died. But then a year after this had happened, we all woke up with this screaming. And so clearly, not only is he alive, obviously this creature must still be alive because we're still connected somehow. And if I remember right, we had to find a boat because to go to this place, it was far up in the north. So we had to find a boat. We found a boat. It was like a big old steamship. And I remember we were going north. It was colder and colder. We were in the bridge of the ship. And this thing was very clearly still alive and waiting for us. And it sent these bats to stop us. And these hundreds of thousands of bats started pummeling the glass on the bridge of the ship. And I remember I think they actually managed to pound through one of the doors, or one of the doors was open and they pushed it the rest of the way open. And all of a sudden, the bridge of the ship was flooded with these bats. And I remember one of them, like I'm sure more than one, being on my back. And I woke up twisting, trying to get this thing off my back. And of course, I was just awake in my bed. But it was such a specific story that I cannot possibly imagine, like what various psychosexual hang-up it might have been addressing. It just seemed to be
yeah, it's a very clean narrative.
Yeah. It was like dipping in on someone else's story for a minute.
It's very Stephen King-ish. A lot of points.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't have like my stories. I don't know what I've told and what I haven't. I did find a handful of things that I thought I could share while doing some research for Ghost Story Guys today.
All right, well, first of all, the part about the ship going north further and further just makes me think of the Metal Church song, Burial at Sea, which is about a captain who goes crazy and keeps taking his ship further north as they all freeze to death.
Wow, that's cool. What's that called again?
Burial at Sea. It's on the Dark from Metal Church.
All right, I am saving that for later. That sounds awesome.
I also wanted to mention that Jonathan Bartholomew, who does the strange stories with the I always
Secret
get the
Skeptic.
Yeah, I always screw that one up. Has released his second book, and he actually posted it in the Discord in the Dreams section. There is a whole section for dreams on there, and he said this is the second book of his series. The first one kicks ass. I haven't finished it, but it's really good. And he said, I'm putting this here because this novel series I'm writing stemmed from a series of interconnected lucid dreams I had about 2 years ago.
Oh, interesting.
So,
nice.
But yeah, the first one I'm about halfway through, and then I had to read other stuff, but I was very compelled by it. And I haven't started the second one yet because I haven't finished the first one, but definitely worth checking out. He writes some interesting stuff, and it's dream related.
Cool. No, I will check that out.
Well, before Brendan goes to the Ghost Story Guys, do either of you have anything else you want to share of your own dreams?
Well, I just didn't get to the different languages here.
Oh, yeah, do that.
Hearing different languages. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of invested in this now. So.
No, please. I would love to hear your stories.
We will get to Brennan's stuff either here or on the Patreon.
Oh,
yeah, the language thing is interesting.
Yeah, but it just ties into what we were kind of going over. But I need my laptop, so forgive if there are loud noises on the mic. Because I pulled everything up and the translations. I just want to know if this is a fairly common thing.
I don't think it's common.
Well, so in our world today, being hyper-connected, we do get exposed to different languages. If we're
sure.
Unfortunately, I only know one very clearly. I'm only fluent in one, so that's kind of embarrassing. But so this year, I've had 3 instances of hearing words that from languages I don't know at all. I couldn't find the other one, but the very first one that I could think of is one that I think I've talked about before because it relates to Tim Renner. With his flaming flowers. Back in 2017, I picked up a bag and very clearly written on it in French, and I cannot speak it, so I'm not going to slaughter it, but it was basically just exactly French for the flowers are flammable. Or something. So I can't just slaughter if I try to say it. And it was just so clear, and it was written in Sharpie on a white label on this plastic bag, and I think it was supposed to be in like a factory or something, so I don't know where the flowers were or why this was written in French, but it was so clear that I just woke up and wrote it down. I didn't actually know what it meant. I just remembered the fourth one, but it was also from that same year. So I had this, it was definitely, I was in REM, but I felt like I was awake at the same time. So I think I was just aware of being in sleep paralysis, and this entity, I had a balcony in the room, and this entity floated through the balcony doors. It was probably around like 5 o'clock, just barely getting light out. And I felt it crawl onto my bed. It felt like it was child-sized or something. I couldn't make anything else out, and I couldn't move. Typical sleep paralysis demon kind of thing, but I wasn't scared of it. I was just like, what is happening? This is annoying. I just want to sleep. Please go away. And I think, and I do not have it pulled up in front of me, but I think it was in my right ear. It leans in and whispers very clearly a very specific phrase that was not in English. And this freaked me out enough to wake me up immediately. And I woke up and I tried to Google the phrase phonetically, just based on what I heard. And it was a few words, just one short sentence. And I thought it was Spanish, but I'm like, I don't recognize any of these words. And I feel like I would, because I know enough of Spanish that I would get something out of it. But it was very similar to Spanish, at least. And so I Googled, like, 3 of the words were correct that I spelled, and the rest was just kind of, I couldn't get it right. And it ended up being, and I got to pull it up here, but it was basically, I think it's dark before the dawn or something like that in Italian. And it was clear, perfect Italian. Like, the diction was perfect. But I didn't know this until a random Italian man messaged me 3 months later. And I was just like, hey, I have a really weird question. And my phone is talking to me for some reason.
In Italian?
You better not. I will run out of the room, just FYI. But I gotta find it because it was amazing. But the phrase was just, it was so creepy that this thing came into the room and whispered this thing in Italian in my ear. And I don't have it pulled up. I don't know where it is. But I think that was probably, that might have been I don't know. No, that was the second time. So the first time was the flowers thing. There we go. I found it. Hang on. So again, I would slaughter it, but I'm trying to find it so I can translate it accurately. Nope. The problem is my dreams are extremely long. Like, every single one of them is at least 3 pages, and it's very obnoxious.
What's that like?
I know you understand, and that really helps.
I feel your pain on that one. I will ramble for a minute to give you time to look that up. So I haven't had, besides the weirdly spelled blame in that previous dream I talked about, I haven't had words or anything in other languages pop up in dreams. But something I will get, and this is, while awake or dreaming, and happens not frequently, but enough to be a thing I've noticed, is that I will get names popping into my head all the time. And one of that, which happens so often, I eventually just looked it up to see what, if anything, or why this would be happening, was Theophrastus, which, I mean, as you can tell by the sound of the name, just ancient Greek philosopher, but like, okay, interesting dude, I'll probably read his wiki or something sometime, but I have no idea why his name continually pops into my brain sometimes.
That's really interesting, yeah. When it's repetitive like that, yeah. But yeah, so you don't have any inkling as to why?
No, I mean, I think, I don't have it open right now, but I think he was either a student or around the same time as Aristotle. He was mainly connected to early, like, herbalism and the study of plants. But, like, I mean, interesting historical dude, but, like, nothing connected to any aspect of my life or anything I can think of. It's just a name that continually pops into my head sometimes.
Maybe you were him in a past life.
Oh, no. It's always a past life.
Maybe you were him in a future life.
That is something, not to get too off topic, that I wonder about, that if time isn't linear the way we've talked about so many times, why don't people have memories of future lives?
Well, I mean, technically people have been hypnotized to their future lives, but it's hypnosis, so it doesn't really count.
And I guess there's also no way to verify or explore, like you can look up a location or a time period. You can't, anything from the future is purely speculative.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, I don't know, our brains work linearly, so...
Yeah, they try to structure. I mean, I've noticed that with dreams, like my brain trying to force structure onto things that are not structured.
Yeah.
which is kind of frustrating.
See, I don't end up writing dreams like the two of you because either A, I don't remember that degree of detail, or B, I just don't have the energy to write that much about it.
I don't either. So I think I told you a couple times this month, I had 4-page dreams and I was literally almost crying. I'm like, but I don't want to lose any of the detail because it was just too fascinating. And I don't have the time or energy. I don't want to whine about this as to talk about first world problems, but like, it's so frustrating.
That is wild to me because I usually get like a paragraph.
Right.
I had a dream I wrote down the other day, and I think it's a paragraph and a half.
I kind of envy that. And a lot of my dreams are, but like, I do get those 4-pagers that are they torture me.
When I get information dreams, I will write down the stuff that I think is information. Like I'll write down the whole dream, but the stuff I'll focus on getting, detailed is. Because it's like I'll get information mixed in with dream imagery. And then sometimes the dream imagery turns out to be part of the information. In one case, there was someone I was told I was going to meet, and I was given all the info, including their age, which happens a lot. And I think I've talked about this before. When I met her, she was a year younger than it said she was going to be, and we did not get along at all. And pretty much right after her birthday, we hung out once and got along great. And I didn't realize that in between those two times, she became the age I was told she was going to be when I met her. But in that dream, there was also like a conversation about an electric bill and a heating bill or something like that. And I just kind of marked it down and then totally forgot about it. I was just like, yeah, that's just part of a weird dream thing or whatever, except that actually happened.
Yeah, that's part of the reason I do record, and not just dreams, but like any mundane life detail in such extensive detail and everything, is because there is no way to tell except in retrospect which of these things are going to be mundane and pointless and which are of such huge significance.
Yeah. I mean, the conversation about the heating and stuff, this was at the radio station, was not particularly important. It was just another thing that there was an information point. Like, yes, you got the right person, but I already knew that. I didn't necessarily need that part. It was just an interesting kind of factor into it,
Well, like, excuse me, like with my first story, if I hadn't written things down to be able to contextualize it with the, incense shattering, that initial story, I would think I was just bad at sweeping a floor.
Right. Well, I did that. I talked about this recently because I don't think I mentioned it until recently, but at one point I had 3 oil marks on my closet door in my bedroom. And I looked at them as I sat down on the bed to go to sleep, to get into bed. And I'm like, what are those? And then I sat there puzzling over them for a while. And I'm like, they seem oily. And I don't remember if I cleaned them right away or I waited till the next day, but I associated no importance to them. It wasn't until much later that I went, no, wait a minute. Where did those come from? Like, there was no obvious reason those should be there. I don't even know what they were. But they would
visit from the greasy strangler.
Yeah, right.
You have a very sweaty ghost.
Gross. That is so disgusting. Why did it have to be greasy?
Oh, did you find what you were looking for, Nat?
Okay, so update. I am having a lot of very strange technical issues.
Oh, excellent.
Between my phone and my laptop, so it is no longer just my laptop. Now, earlier when I started the laptop, I opened Explorer, as you do, and started searching up the dreams, but it wouldn't search them. It was searching other things, but it wasn't in everything's index, so I can't find it, which has never happened before. Then it decided to suddenly do it when I did something else. So I've just been like fighting with it the whole time, which is why I've been kind of quiet. And then, so now I opened this and my phone started talking to me, but it actually did not. It was the Google Voice or whatever that is.
Yeah.
But when I went to look at my phone, it had done nothing. There was no evidence of it ever opening.
Oh. I've had many times my phone has made noises it shouldn't.
I'm blaming this on you because this stuff doesn't happen to me.
Definitely happens to me.
And I can't get
I was
sound
actually
files
blaming
to
you
work.
today, Seriah, because I went to a diner for breakfast and I sat down and immediately the light above me started flickering. Thank you, Seriah.
That was me exactly. I was like, I bet Brennan, he's sitting in a diner right now. I'm going to make that light flicker.
I mean, I think we both know you were in bed still, or you might have been just going to bed. It was about 9 a.m. So.
It was probably shortly after I went to sleep. However, maybe I was dreaming about you and don't remember.
Well, I had that dream about you and Natalie after that episode you had. So,
well, the long story short here is I did have an audio file that is absolutely not playing for me now. But it was the Italian friend was actually saying it, so I didn't have, but I can't. So You'll just have to believe me that it exists. But he was totally cool with me. Like, I had to explain the whole dream incident. He's like, wow. So I was like, I don't even know how to say it. Like, I just wanted, so he recorded it for me and he did the whisper thing. So, but it, it's not the same voice, but still it's pretty terrifying to hear it.
Yeah.
But the actual translation of it was kind of like a broken sentence. Like it started in the middle of a sentence and it was in the shadow before dawn. Was
that's
the phrase.
cool.
Oh.
And this was at 5 a.m. So
That sounds like a metal song.
It does. It was like such a cliche thing because it was before dawn. It was like right before dawn that this occurred at all. And I'm like, at least it could have been something funny, but it was, I guess, it was kind of profound, but it's just in Italian and I don't know why it was very confusing. I just don't have an answer for that. Like, what is that? Like, is it just subconscious? Did I somehow absorb Italian along the way and just spit it back out?
Who knows? What was the dream you had, Brennan?
Which one?
About Natalie and I?
Oh, yeah. There was a hot tub. No, I'm kidding. Wow.
Was it a time?
One left.
Was it a time machine?
Was it? Oh my God! Yes.
No, it was. I later found out it was after the night you had that medical issue where you aspirated the medication.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was great.
Yeah, so it was that night. But again, I didn't know what had happened.
We had a good light show in the yard that night.
What's that?
We had a good light show in the yard that night.
because I had to call an ambulance.
And I was in the middle of cooking. It was pretty great.
Yeah, I remember. All I remember is you two were talking, and something like you were having like a very serious conversation, like something serious had happened, and you were in like a light colored room, and I was on the other side of like either. It was almost like I was aware I was dreaming because I remember looking at my closet, but I also remember seeing an outline of you two, and like I was on the other side of a curtain or the other side of a wall, but the curtain is almost like that's the memory. Like it presents as a curtain, but you guys were having a very serious conversation about something, and like I said, I didn't see either of you. I just heard you, and I knew you were there on the other side of this curtain.
It makes me think of those old curtains I used to use for plays, and I can't remember what they're called. I feel like Matt, you would know what I'm talking about.
I do know exactly what you're talking about, but I don't know the word for it. Where you can adjust and dim the lighting so whether they're transparent or not.
Exactly, like you can see through it, or it would be opaque if you have a projection on it. Yeah,
yeah, like that. Or it also was like a little bit like when you've got like beds next to each other in a hospital.
Oh yeah.
And you got the privacy curtain. It was also a little bit like that, but there was no space at the top. So it wasn't like it went a certain way up and stopped. It went all the way to the ceiling.
This is fascinating. It's really interesting. And you could just see us in silhouette.
I couldn't even really see you. It was like I couldn't move. I was sort of looking at like a 3/4 angle. So you were just outside my field of vision. It was like I could just kind of see your shadows on the wall, but indistinctly.
Wow.
I could hear you more than I could see you, and I couldn't even hear you that much. I just knew you were talking, and I knew I could recognize your voices.
Huh.
That's so strange. I don't know why that impacts me more than just seeing somebody dead on clear in a dream. And just I don't know. There's something strange about that.
Yeah, it was odd enough. I remembered it, and I was actually going to reach out, and I just for whatever reason I thought, maybe I better not tell these people. Hey, I had a dream about you last night. But that's not strange.
I like that kind of thing. I'm all open to it.
And then you posted you posted what had happened, Seriah, and I was like, oh, dang.
Yeah, that's very strange.
Keep doing that,
especially when you mention it seems like a hospital. I don't like the tone of that, but also it's very fitting.
Yeah, because I did have to call an ambulance.
Yeah,
and then
did you actually go to the hospital?
No, because I coughed up. I coughed up what was stuck in my windpipe right before they got here.
Right.
And then I'm kind of like, yeah, so I think I'm okay. I mean, I wasn't okay, but I wasn't. I was no longer struggling to breathe.
At least I could. Yeah,
you weren't actively dying.
Right.
It was that's so bizarre that you had that though. I almost want to have you send that to me so I can put that in my documents. I think that's pretty telling. Next time you have something, you should tell us.
I mean, yeah, I will. I didn't even write that one down, actually.
Oh, no, of course not.
Yeah, I didn't even write it down. I just sort of had it, and then...
I wouldn't have done that either. I wouldn't have written it down, and then I'd be kicking myself.
Yeah.
It's just such a little blip. It doesn't seem like much to write down.
All right. Well, we are about out of time. Brennan, I hear you do a podcast or two.
So they say. Yeah, you can find me hosting the Ghost Story Guys podcast. That's at ghoststoryguys.com and everywhere fine podcasts live. And I also co-write the show Fear Daily. I had to think about that one for a second. And that is a daily horror fiction show, 2 stories twice a day. I'm just about finished my longest story yet. It'll be released in 6 parts for the public. It'll be released in one very long, probably 90-minute episode for patrons or Supercast members. That's called Zeta House. It will be out probably next month, because I think once Brandon sees how long it is, Brandon is the narrator and the producer, he's going to kill me.
Now you said two stories twice a day.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. 2 stories a day.
Yeah. Okay.
That is
Monday
an
to Friday.
insane amount of output.
Yes, it is.
Yes. I don't know how Brandon does it. Again, I've stepped back. I'm contributing much less than I was. We're also starting to run more reruns as well.
Oh,
just
okay.
to help us fill in the schedule a little bit.
Yeah, because that's a little ambitious.
Yes, it drove me into ill health at the beginning of this year. It was so ambitious. 10 original stories a week, at least 1,000 words apiece. Turns out that's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, I was a little concerned when you told me you were doing it.
With good reason, because as I say, oh God, it was bad. I won't get into it, but it was bad. So now he is much better at marshaling his ADHD than I am, and so yes. But I get to work on these long ones. I've done a really fun cosmic horror one called The Witness, which incorporates a lot of the stuff we talk about on here or over on Ghost Story Guys. And of course, like I say, Zeta House, which is a ghost story set on a college campus in 1972.
Nice. Matt, people can find your artwork where?
Yes, I am on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Xiaohong Shu. All of them are at Tiamat's Garden.
And you did Joshua Cutchin's latest book.
Was that the latest one? He puts out so many. Has he had something since then?
I don't think so. I think that was...
Okay, yeah. Fourth Wall Phantoms I did the cover for.
And you did the cover for my autobiography, which is almost done. In fact, Brennan is currently proofreading it.
Yes, I am indeed.
So there's proof it exists, and
It does. It's really good. I'm digging it, and I am. Yes, I will endeavor to proofread it as fast as possible.
He's halfway through the title.
It is a long title, And Natalie, if people want to find you,
Just social media under EO Rhythm will probably find me.
that's EO Rhythm.
EO Rhythm, yeah.
All right, we will continue this conversation on Patreon. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I want to take a moment here to thank all of my Patreons. Without you, this show would be hard to sustain. So thank you all. And a special shout out to the patrons pledging $10 or more. Greg Ross, Cherry Trapezoid, Tactical Therapist, John Blackburn, Matt in Delaware, Mark Smith, Madeline J., Marty Garza, Critter 80, Gantic, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, Sean Cosgrove, Matthew Sproul, Ruth Fortescue, Andrew Nichols, Martha, Tyler Glimstead, Christine, Mothman Bren, Mark Brady, Patricia Gaia-Quinta, Kevin Schreck, Linz Jackson K., Charles in Florida, Land of the Crazy and Communicable, Charles Davis, Kristen L., Giotto, Riker and Stark, Abby Allen, Bright Rectangle, Eric Citron, Kevin, American Rambler, Sam Sharon, Taylor Bell, Thunderboy, Eric Todd, Ann Witowski, Vincent Trewell, Will Powell, Barbara Fisher, Schmooples, Devourer of Mortal Souls, Jay, MTK, History and Coffee, Diane B., Beverly Williamson, Jim and Sophie, Jonathan Frost, Victoria, John Bracken, Paul Jeffries, Janet's Planet, Ron Dupre, Laser Printer Jam, Perry Peters, Varoche K., MJ Armstrong, Jack Huntington, Lauren McLean, Stacy Sherwood, James Lindsay, Billuminati, Strange Stories with the Seeker and Skeptic podcast, Mark Shoemaker, Ron Dupre, Will Cherry, Seed Person, The Ghost Story Guys, Liam Huddock, Harold, Annabelle Smith, Caroline Walker, TDT Skunkworks, Craig Sagastumi, Colin Karras, Matthew Brown, and Paul Guile Simpson. Thank you all so very, very much. There's a lengthy Patreon segment to accompany this show. So if you liked what we were talking about, there's that, and there will be a part 3 with some different participants, hopefully, if all goes well. I do want to welcome some new patrons to the show. Bill Houston, Dave Baxter, MP Brady, It From Us, Aloco7, and Paul Guile Simpson. I hope you all like the extra content. and the early access. It's only $3 a month for anyone else who wants to join. Just go to wheredidtheroadgo.com and click on the big Patreon link. You can also rate us wherever you're listening and recommend us to friends. Everything helps. See you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is brought to you in part by our Patreons. You can find more at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. Website designed by John Tudor. The intro for this show was reimagined by Andrew Ham, a.k.a. Lord Happus on Spotify. And the voice is Psyche Kamir of Psyche Corporation. Artwork for the show designed by Timothy Renner, Jeff Ritzman, and Nadim Mahibahi. General inquiries, comments, etc. can be directed to contact at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Thank you all for listening and for all the support. www.wheredidtheroadgo.com.